Arizona Territory, 1885. The ramshackle schoolhouse stood defiant against the desert wind, much like its newest teacher. Inside, Sarah Holloway faced her unusual student, a paralyzed Apache warrior propped in a wheeled chair, eyes burning with silent rage. The town council had given her this assignment as punishment for challenging their prejudices. Teach the savage, they sneered, or pack your bags. They expected her to fail. What they hadn't counted on was her stubborn determination. Sarah approached the man, whose hands lay useless in his lap. They say you can't speak, she said, placing a slate before him. I believe they're wrong. Could a woman with nothing but compassion and conviction transform a broken warrior into the territory's most brilliant mind? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if the story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The stagecoach rattled to a halt, dust billowing around the wooden wheels. Sarah Holloway gathered her skirts and stepped down, squinting against the harsh Arizona sun. Copper Springs was smaller than she had imagined. A scattered collection of wooden buildings baking in the desert heat, the copper mine looming on the hillside behind them. Miss Holloway? A portly man in a tailored waistcoat approached, mopping his brow with a handkerchief. Mayor Thornton, welcome to Copper Springs. Sarah adjusted her grip on her carpetbag, her other hand clutching her most prized possession. A teacher's certificate from Boston Normal School, now creased and worn from the journey west. Thank you, Mayor. I'm eager to begin my duties. The mayor's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. We're mighty pleased to have an educated lady from Boston. Our last teacher left rather abruptly. Sarah had answered the advertisement in a moment of impulse, fueled by her father's recent sermon on making a difference in the world. Reverend Holloway had raised his daughter with progressive ideals uncommon for the times, encouraging her education when many still considered it unnecessary for women. We've arranged lodging with Mrs. Abernathy, Mayor Thornton continued, gesturing toward a stern-looking woman approaching them. She keeps a respectable boarding house. Mrs. Abernathy gave Sarah a critical once-over. I run a God-fearing house, Miss Holloway. No gentlemen callers, no liquor, no coming in after 8. I assure you, Mrs. Abernathy, you'll find me a model tenant, Sarah replied, maintaining her composure despite the woman's chill. The schoolhouse sat at the edge of town, a simple, weathered building with a bell tower that listed slightly to one side. Inside, rows of mismatched desks faced a blackboard mounted on the wall. Sarah ran her fingers along the teacher's desk, a feeling of purpose settling over her. 28 pupils, ages 6 to 16, Mayor Thornton explained, watching as she examined the space. Committee meets monthly to review your progress. The following days brought introductions to the townsfolk. Samuel Wright, the storekeeper with kind eyes, extended credit until her first month's pay. Sheriff Davis, a weathered man with a perpetual furrow between his brows, tipped his hat respectfully but offered little conversation. It was in Wright's general store that Sarah first encountered the town's attitude toward the local Apache tribe. A woman in traditional dress entered, a child clutching her skirt. The customers fell silent, stepping away as if the woman carried disease. We don't serve your kind here, the clerk said harshly. Go to the back door if you want something. The Apache woman's face remained impassive, but Sarah noted the tightening of her hand on her child's shoulder. Excuse me, Sarah interjected, moving to stand beside the woman. Is there a problem? The clerk sputtered. This ain't Boston, miss. We have ways here. I wasn't aware those ways included discourtesy to customers, Sarah replied, her voice level but firm. That evening, Sarah met Dr. William Morgan when he came to Mrs. Abernathy's to tend to another boarder's cough. Tall, with prematurely silver hair at his temples and observant blue eyes, the doctor spoke with an educated cadence that reminded her of home. You've made an impression already, Miss Holloway, he said as they shared tea in the parlor. Standing up for that Apache woman in Wright's store. Sarah tensed. You disapprove? On the contrary. His smile revealed a dimple in his right cheek. This town could use some fresh thinking. But tread carefully. The wound between settlers and Apache runs deep here. What happened? Dr. Morgan sighed. Raids from both sides. Bloodshed. Fear. The usual tragic story of this territory. Sarah's first town meeting came the following week. Held in the church, it began with mundane matters, water rights, road repairs, the upcoming Founders' Day celebration. Then came a discussion of the Apache problem. They've been spotted again near Peterson's ranch, one man declared. We should petition the army to remove them all to San Carlos. Even the peaceful ones? Sarah asked, unable to contain herself. Surely not all. Miss Holloway, Mayor Thornton interrupted. You're new here. These matters are complicated. I understand complexity, Mayor. I simply question whether banishing an entire people based on the actions of a few is just. The room fell silent. Sarah felt the weight of hostile stares. Perhaps, Mayor Thornton said coldly, our new teacher would benefit from first-hand experience with the Apache. It seems we have found a solution to our other problem. Later, as the meeting disbanded, Dr. Morgan caught up with Sarah outside. That was either very brave or very foolish, he said quietly. Is there a difference? Sarah asked. There might be. He glanced back at the church. The council means to teach you a lesson, Miss Holloway. They've been housing an injured Apache brave behind the jailhouse, a prisoner from the last raid, paralyzed from a bullet to the spine. Sarah frowned. What do they intend? They're assigning him to you, as your student. The council chambers smelled of pipe tobacco and polished wood. Sarah sat straight-backed on a hard chair, facing the 5 men who governed Copper Springs. Mayor Thornton shuffled a stack of papers, the town council minutes that would officially document her punishment disguised as duty. Miss Holloway, the mayor began, given your interest in Apache affairs, we've unanimously decided to expand your teaching responsibilities. Councilman Peters, a rancher with sun-leathered skin, smirked. Since you're so concerned about fair treatment of the Apache, you can teach one yourself. Sarah kept her expression neutral, though her heart pounded. I'm not sure I understand. Mayor Thornton cleared his throat. After the last raid, the army left a wounded Apache with us. Shot. In the back. Can't walk. Can't work. Been keeping him in the storeroom behind the jail, but it's a waste of space. And what would you have me do with him? Sarah asked carefully. Teach him, Councilman Harrison said. A banker whose gold watch chain strained across his ample belly. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Make him useful somehow. Sarah noted the cruel amusement in their eyes. This was no humanitarian gesture. The army won't take him back to the reservation in his condition, Sheriff Davis added from his position by the door. Unlike the others, he had the decency to look uncomfortable. And we can't just turn him loose. Consider it a test of your progressive ideals, Miss Holloway, Mayor Thornton said, dipping his pen in ink to record the decision. Unless you feel it's beyond your capabilities? The challenge hung in the air. Refuse, and she would prove herself a hypocrite. Accept, and she'd face a nearly impossible task while becoming an object of ridicule. I'll need proper resources, Sarah said, her decision made. Books, materials, better accommodation than a storeroom. Surprise flickered across the mayor's face before he regained his composure. You'll make do with what we provide. Your regular teaching duties remain unchanged, of course. This is additional. After the meeting, Sarah found Dr. Morgan waiting outside, leaning against a hitching post. I heard, he said simply. They moved quickly. You knew they'd do this? He sighed. I suspected. Mayor Thornton doesn't appreciate being challenged, especially by a woman. They walked together down the dusty main street, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. Have you seen him? The Apache? Sarah asked. I treated his wounds when they brought him in. Bullet shattered his lower spine. He'll never walk again. The doctor hesitated. He hasn't spoken a word since they brought him here. Not one. Does he have a name? None that he's shared. The sheriff just calls him the Apache. Sarah's stomach tightened. They don't even grant him the dignity of a name. This isn't what you came west for, Miss Holloway. No one would blame you if you declined this assignment. Sarah stopped walking. And confirm what they already believe about me? That my convictions are shallow and untested. Dr. Morgan studied her face. This won't be easy. The man has lost everything, his mobility, his freedom, his people. He may not welcome your help. Has anyone truly tried to help him? Not in the way you're thinking. He shifted his medical bag to his other hand. They've kept him alive. That's about all. The following morning, Sarah awoke before dawn, her mind churning with plans and doubts. At breakfast, Mrs. Abernathy regarded her with newfound suspicion. Heard you're taking on the savage, she said, pouring coffee with a shaking hand. Best be careful. Apache don't forget who their enemies are. I'm not his enemy, Mrs. Abernathy. The older woman sniffed. You're white. That's enough. Sarah found Sheriff Davis at the jailhouse, keys jangling at his belt as he led her to a door at the rear of the building. Don't expect much, he warned, unlocking the padlock. He's been here 3 months. Barely eats. Never speaks. The storeroom was dim, the only light filtering through a small, barred window set high in the wall. The smell hit her first, unwashed body, urine, neglect. As her eyes adjusted, Sarah made out a figure on a pallet in the corner. The Apache warrior sat propped against the wall, long black hair hanging limp around a face carved from stone. His legs, thin and useless, stretched out before him. His eyes, when they met hers, contained such intense hatred that Sarah took an involuntary step back. I'll be outside, the sheriff said, retreating quickly. Sarah removed her gloves slowly, buying time as she gathered her courage. My name is Sarah Holloway, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. I'm the schoolteacher here. The warrior's face remained impassive, but his eyes tracked her every movement. The council has asked me to teach you. She paused, realizing how absurd it sounded. Though I suspect neither of us had much choice in the matter. No response. I intend to move you to the schoolhouse. This is no place for anyone to live. Still nothing. Sarah squared her shoulders. You don't have to speak to me. You don't even have to like me. But I will teach you and you will learn. That's a promise. As she turned to leave, she caught the barest flicker in his eyes. Not just hatred now, but something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or maybe just surprise. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Sarah returned the next morning with Dr. Morgan and a wheeled chair borrowed from his surgery. Sheriff Davis watched skeptically as they prepared to move the Apache warrior. He won't like being handled, the sheriff warned. The warrior's dark eyes followed their movements, his face unreadable. His body was thinner than Sarah had first realized, the muscles of his once powerful chest and arms beginning to waste from disuse. The bullet wound on his back had healed poorly, leaving a puckered scar visible when Dr. Morgan carefully helped him sit forward. I'm going to move you to a chair, the doctor explained, though he received no acknowledgement. It will be more comfortable than being carried. Took both men to lift him. The warrior remained rigid, his jaw clenched, dignity evident in his refusal to show pain. Once settled in the wheeled chair, something shifted in his posture, a subtle straightening, as though even this small elevation from the floor restored some measure of stature. The school is just down the street, Sarah said, taking control of the chair. You'll have a proper bed there and light. A small crowd gathered as they emerged from the jailhouse. Children pointed, women pulled them closer. Men narrowed their eyes, hands drifting toward belt knives or pistols. though the warrior was clearly no threat in his current state. "Teaching him to read won't change what he is," someone called out. Sarah pretended not to hear, focusing instead on navigating the chair through the rutted street. Dr. Morgan walked beside them, his presence discouraging further comments. The schoolhouse's back room had been a storage space. Sarah had spent the previous evening clearing it out, installing a narrow bed borrowed from Mrs. Abernathy's boarding house. Sunlight streamed through the uncurtained window, illuminating the simple furnishings: the bed, a small table, a wooden chair, and a battered washstand with a porcelain basin. "It's not much," she admitted as Dr. Morgan helped transfer the warrior to the bed. "But it's clean and it's private." The warrior's gaze swept the room, lingering on the window with its view of open sky and distant mountains. For a moment, something like longing crossed his face before the stoic mask returned. Dr. Morgan examined him, professionally checking the healing wound and the condition of his legs. "The paralysis is permanent," he confirmed quietly to Sarah. "But his upper body could regain strength with proper care and exercise." When they were alone, Sarah sat in the wooden chair facing the bed. "I need to call you something," she said. "I won't simply refer to you as the Apache." No response. "Until you choose to tell me your name, I'll call you Mr. Thompson." She smiled slightly at his look of surprise. Everyone deserves the dignity of a name and proper address. She placed a wooden slate on the bed beside him. "Can you write? In any language?" The warrior, Mr. Thompson now, stared at the slate but made no move to touch it. "Sheriff Davis says you've been here 3 months," Sarah continued, undeterred by his silence. "He says you haven't spoken a word in all that time. But I wonder if that's because no one has said anything worth responding to." She stood and moved to the window. "I came west to teach children, to make a difference in a place that needed education. I didn't expect to find such prejudice here." She turned back to him. "I suspect you didn't expect to end up paralyzed in an enemy's schoolhouse." For a fleeting second, their gazes locked in mutual recognition of circumstances neither had chosen. "Tomorrow I'll bring soap and clean clothes," she said. "And books. We'll start with the basics: reading, writing, English. I don't suppose you speak it already?" Silence. "I thought not." Sarah gathered her shawl. "I have afternoon classes now. I'll return this evening with supper." As she reached the door, she looked back. "You probably think this is pointless. Maybe it is. But I made a promise to teach you, and I intend to keep it." That evening, after her regular classes, Sarah returned with a tray of stew, bread, and coffee. She found Mr. Thompson exactly as she'd left him, but the slate had moved slightly on the bed. "Did you try to use it?" she asked, setting down the tray. His eyes flickered to the slate, then away. "It's all right if you did." She placed the food on the small table. "That's why it's here." She helped him sit up, noting how he tensed at her touch, then withdrew as soon as possible. When she offered a spoonful of stew, he turned his head away. "You need to eat," Sarah said firmly. "I won't have you starving yourself." Something like challenge flashed in his eyes. "Fine," she said, setting the spoon down. "Hunger strike if you must. But I'll be back tomorrow and the day after that. This isn't a battle either of us can afford to fight." As she left, Sarah paused at the door. "Whatever you may think of me, Mr. Thompson, I am not your enemy. Sooner or later, you'll have to decide if you want more than just survival." Outside, she leaned against the schoolhouse wall, letting out a shaky breath. The task before her seemed impossible. Teaching a man who wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat, wouldn't acknowledge her beyond glares of contempt. But something in his eyes haunted her. Behind the hatred and resignation, she had glimpsed intelligence and pride. And perhaps, though she might have imagined it, a flicker of curiosity. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah established a routine. Each morning before classes, she would bring breakfast to Mr. Thompson, help him wash, and spend 30 minutes attempting to engage him in learning. She would return at midday, and again in the evening after her regular teaching duties were complete. Progress was minimal. Mr. Thompson had begun to eat, at least, though he would only do so after she left the room. He tolerated her assistance with necessary tasks but remained rigid and unresponsive during her attempts at instruction. "The alphabet," Sarah said one morning, writing the letters on the slate. "A, B, C. Each one makes a sound. Together, they form words." Mr. Thompson stared past her at the window, his expression unchanging. "I know you understand more than you let on," Sarah said, setting down the chalk. "Your eyes follow the letters. You watch me when you think I'm not looking." No response. Sarah sighed. "Very well. Perhaps we'll try something different tomorrow." As she gathered her materials, she noticed something clutched in his right hand. An eagle feather, carefully preserved. She had never seen it before. He must keep it hidden when others were present. "That's beautiful," she said quietly. His fingers tightened around the feather, and for the first time, emotion crossed his face. A fierce protectiveness. "It's yours," Sarah assured him. "I wouldn't take it." That afternoon, Sarah found Dr. Morgan waiting outside the schoolhouse after classes. "How is our patient?" he asked. "Physically? Improving, I think. His appetite is better, but he still won't communicate." They walked together toward the edge of town, where the desert stretched toward distant mountains. "He had a feather today," Sarah said. "An eagle feather. He guards it like a treasure." Dr. Morgan nodded thoughtfully. "Among many tribes, eagle feathers are sacred. They're earned through acts of courage or wisdom. They're not merely decorative. They're symbols of honor." "So he was someone of importance," Sarah mused. "Before. Very possibly. Which might explain his resistance now. To go from respected warrior to helpless captive." The doctor let the thought hang unfinished. Sarah stopped walking. "He's not helpless. His body is damaged, not his mind." "Does he know that?" Dr. Morgan asked gently. "Sometimes the hardest prison is the one we build ourselves." The next morning, Sarah arrived with a new approach. Instead of the slate, she brought a book with illustrations, one she used with her youngest pupils. "I thought we might try something different," she said, settling into the chair beside his bed. "This is a book of animals. Each picture has a name beneath it." She opened to the first page, a detailed drawing of a horse. "Horse," she said clearly, pointing to the word. "I wonder if the Apache have horses." Mr. Thompson's eyes flicked to the page, then away, but not before Sarah caught a glimmer of interest. "You do, don't you?" she persisted. "I've heard the Apache are skilled riders." She turned the page. "Bird. Eagle," she added, glancing at the feather now tucked out of sight. "I imagine eagles are important to your people." Each day after that, Sarah brought pictures, animals, objects, landscapes. She would name them, then leave the book with him. Sometimes, returning later, she would find the pages turned to different images. One afternoon, a young boy from her class, Tommy Jenkins, a curious 7-year-old with perpetually scraped knees, followed her into the back room. "Is that the Indian, Miss Holloway?" he asked loudly before Sarah could intercept him. Mr. Thompson's head turned sharply at the child's voice. "This is Mr. Thompson," Sarah corrected gently. "And yes, he is Apache." Tommy approached the bed without fear. "My pa says Apache are dangerous." "Are you dangerous, mister?" Sarah began to intervene, but something unexpected happened. Mr. Thompson's face softened almost imperceptibly as he regarded the child. He slowly shook his head. "See," Tommy said triumphantly. "He's not dangerous." "Can he talk?" "He can," Sarah said, her heart racing at this first response. "But he chooses not to right now." Tommy considered this. "My little sister didn't talk for a long time either. Ma was worried. But then one day she just started, and now she won't stop. Mr. Thompson's lip twitched. Not quite a smile, but the closest thing to it that Sarah had seen. "Tommy," Sarah said carefully, "would you like to show Mr. Thompson your reading? The book about horses we practiced yesterday." The boy nodded eagerly, climbing onto the chair. Sarah handed him the reader, and Tommy began laboriously sounding out words about a farm horse named Star. Mr. Thompson watched intently, his eyes moving between the child and the book. When Tommy struggled with a word, the warrior's fingers twitched slightly, as if wanting to point. After Tommy left, Sarah sat in contemplative silence. "He didn't frighten you," she observed finally. "The child. You responded to him." Mr. Thompson looked away, but something had changed. The wall between them, though still standing, had developed the smallest of cracks. That night, Sarah wrote in her journal, "Progress today, not with words or slate, but with something more fundamental." He responded to a child's innocent question. There is a man behind that wall of silence, a man who can still connect with others. I just need to find the right key to unlock his voice. Sarah noticed the change gradually. Each morning, Mr. Thompson's position in bed was slightly different. The muscles in his arms, once wasting away, had begun to regain definition. One day, approaching the schoolhouse before dawn, she glimpsed movement through the window. Mr. Thompson pulling himself upright, using the bedpost for leverage, his face contorted with effort. She withdrew silently, giving him privacy in this moment of personal battle. Later, when she brought his breakfast, she made no mention of what she'd seen, but she observed his arms with new understanding. "I've brought something different today," she said, setting down a small wooden box on his bed. "Dr. Morgan suggested it might interest you." Inside the box were simple wood-carving tools, a small knife, a gouge, several pieces of pine wood. Mr. Thompson looked at them, then at her, his expression questioning. "I thought you might like something to occupy your hands," Sarah explained. "Dr. Morgan says working the muscles in your arms and hands will strengthen them." She demonstrated how to hold the knife, making a simple cut in one of the wood pieces. "Like this. Of course, you'd be much better at it than I am." She left the box within his reach and went about her morning routine, arranging his breakfast and straightening the room. When she glanced back, his hand was hovering over the tools, not quite touching them. "They're yours to use or not," she said, moving toward the door. "I'll return at midday." That evening, Dr. Morgan accompanied Sarah on her visit. He examined Mr. Thompson's reflexes and the condition of his paralyzed legs, making notes in a small book. "No change in the paralysis," he said, "but your overall condition is improving. You're stronger." Mr. Thompson's gaze shifted to the wooden box, now closed on the table beside his bed. "Did you try the carving?" Dr. Morgan asked, following his look. Sarah noticed a small cut on Mr. Thompson's index finger. A slip of the knife, perhaps. "May I see what you've made?" she asked. After a moment's hesitation, Mr. Thompson reached for the box. From inside, he withdrew a small piece of wood. He held it briefly in his palm, then extended it towards Sarah. It was a horse, small, roughly carved, but unmistakable. The flowing mane, the powerful chest, the delicate legs positioned in mid-gallop. Despite its simplicity, it captured the essence of a horse in motion. "It's beautiful," Sarah said, genuinely impressed. "You have a gift." Something flickered in Mr. Thompson's eyes, not quite pride, but acknowledgement. He gestured for her to keep it. "Thank you," she said. Understanding this was no small gesture from a man who possessed nothing. "I'll treasure it." Later, walking Dr. Morgan to his surgery, Sarah turned the wooden horse over in her hand. "It's remarkable," the doctor said. "The detail, considering his limited tools." "It's more than that," Sarah replied. "It's communication. He's telling us something about himself. That he's a craftsman, that he has a connection to horses." Sarah studied the carving. The way he captured the movement, the spirit, he knows horses intimately. The next day, Sarah brought a book about horses, an illustrated guide with detailed drawings of different breeds. Mr. Thompson's interest was immediate and unmistakable. He reached for the book without prompting, turning pages slowly, studying each image with intensity. "You were a horseman," Sarah said. It wasn't a question. Mr. Thompson looked up from the book, meeting her eyes directly. He nodded once, decisively. Sarah's heart quickened at this deliberate response. "Were you a trainer? A breeder?" He made a gesture with his hands, something fluid and graceful that she didn't understand. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't know what that means." Frustration crossed his face. He pointed to the book, then to his chest, then made the flowing gesture again. "You worked with horses in some special way?" He nodded, then looked around for something. His eyes settled on the slate. He reached for it, the first time he had willingly touched the teaching tool. Sarah handed him the chalk, hardly daring to breathe lest she break this moment of connection. Mr. Thompson's hand moved across the slate with surprising dexterity. He drew a simple figure of a horse, then a human figure beside it. Not riding, but standing, one hand extended toward the horse's head. Below, he wrote strange characters, not English letters, but something else entirely. "Is that Apache writing?" Sarah asked, leaning closer. He shook his head. He pointed to the characters, then to himself. "Your name," Sarah guessed. "Is that your name written in your language?" He nodded, touching his chest. "Can you say it?" she asked gently. "Can you tell me your name?" He hesitated, his face conflicted. His lips parted slightly, but no sound emerged. After a moment, he shook his head, frustration evident in the set of his jaw. "It's all right," Sarah assured him. "We've made wonderful progress today. The words will come when you're ready." That night, Sarah added the wooden horse to her small collection of treasures on the windowsill of her room at Mrs. Abernathy's. Beside it, she placed her slate with his, drawing carefully preserved. "He communicated today," she told Dr. Morgan when he came to check on another boarder. "Not with words, but with pictures. He was someone important among his people, someone who worked with horses in a special way." "That's remarkable progress," Dr. Morgan said. "But Sarah, be careful. The more he awakens, the more he may remember what he's lost. Or perhaps," she countered, "he'll begin to see what he might still become." With the barrier of communication cracked, Sarah accelerated her teaching efforts. She created a picture book specifically for Mr. Thompson, crude drawings paired with English words, with spaces left blank for him to add the Apache equivalent if he chose. "Horse," she would say, pointing to the image. Then she would wait, giving him the opportunity to provide his word for it. At first, he remained silent, though he would sometimes write characters in the Apache language. Sarah began to recognize certain symbols, creating her own rudimentary dictionary of his written language. Dr. Morgan proved invaluable in this process. He found an elderly Mexican trader who had spent time among the Apache and arranged a meeting. "Caballo is Spanish for horse," the old man told them. "The Apache say li." He pronounced it slowly, the unfamiliar sound challenging Sarah's Eastern-educated tongue. Sarah practiced diligently, adding these pronunciations to her picture book. The next day, she sat beside Mr. Thompson with renewed determination. "Horse," she said, pointing to the drawing. "Caballo in Spanish." She hesitated, then attempted, "Li in Apache?" Mr. Thompson's eyes widened slightly. He nodded, then, unexpectedly, his lips moved. "Li," he said, barely audible, correcting her pronunciation. Sarah sat perfectly still, afraid any sudden movement might silence him again. "Thank you," she said softly. "Would you teach me more?" That afternoon, for the first time, Mr. Thompson spoke deliberately, single words in his language, matched to her English ones. His voice was rough from disuse, but it gained strength as they continued. Water, Sarah would say. Two, he would reply. Sky. Yeah. Each word seemed to unlock something in him, not just language but memory, identity. Dr. Morgan arrived with a gift that evening, a proper wheelchair, more maneuverable than the old one from his surgery. I wrote to a colleague in Tucson, he explained as he demonstrated the chair's features. These are being used for wounded veterans now. It should give you more independence. Mr. Thompson examined the chair with cautious interest. When they helped him into it, his posture changed subtly, more upright, dignified. Would you like to go outside? Sarah asked. Just for a few minutes? The sun is setting. After a moment's hesitation, Mr. Thompson nodded. The schoolyard was empty, the children long gone home. Sarah wheeled him to a spot where the setting sun painted the desert in brilliant gold and crimson. Mr. Thompson's face tilted upward, eyes closing briefly as he felt the open air. Beautiful, Sarah commented. Nijoni, Mr. Thompson replied softly. A few days later, Sarah decided it was time for a longer excursion. I'd like to take you into town today, she told him during their morning lesson. Just to the general store and back. Would that be acceptable? Wariness crossed his face. People need to see you as a person, not just the Apache, she explained. And you need to see more than these four walls. After consideration, he nodded, though tension remained in his shoulders. The townspeople's reactions were predictable. Surprise, discomfort, some hostility. Children stared openly. Adults pretended not to look while watching from the corners of their eyes. Outside the general store, James Harker, a prominent rancher known for his anti-Apache sentiments, blocked their path. Don't think putting him in proper clothes makes him civilized, Miss Holloway, he said coldly. Before Sarah could respond, Mr. Thompson spoke, his English careful but clear. Water, please. The simple request, so ordinary yet so unexpected, left Harker momentarily speechless. Sarah used the opportunity to will past him into the store. Samuel Wright, the storekeeper, recovered from his surprise quickly. Water? Of course. He poured a dipper from the barrel and handed it to Mr. Thompson, who accepted with a nod of thanks. As they left the store, Sarah noticed the whispers following them, but also the considering looks that replaced some of the hostility. You spoke to them deliberately, she said once they were alone. You wanted them to hear you. Yes. He looked straight ahead. I am not animal in cage. No, Sarah agreed. You never were. That evening, their lesson moved beyond single words to simple sentences. Mr. Thompson's progress accelerated, his natural intelligence finally finding expression. I was not always broken, he said suddenly, the longest sentence he had yet formed in English. Sarah set down her book. No, and you're not broken now. Different, perhaps. Changed, but not broken. He gestured to his useless legs. This, broken. Your legs don't work, Sarah acknowledged. But your mind, your spirit, your hands, these are strong. He considered this, then asked, Why you help me? The directness of the question caught Sarah off guard. Because it's right, she said simply. Because every person deserves dignity and opportunity. Even enemy? Are you my enemy? She countered gently. He held her gaze for a long moment. No, not enemy. He touched his chest. Nayati. My name. Nayati. Sarah smiled, understanding the gift of trust this represented. It's an honor to know your name, Nayati. What does it mean? He who wrestles, he replied. Now, must wrestle new way. We all must, Sarah said. Life rarely follows the path we expect. As darkness fell, Sarah added a new word to her growing dictionary. Nayati. Not Mr. Thompson or the Apache, but a man with a name and a history, finding his voice one word at a time that as Nayati's presence in town became more frequent. The initial curiosity hardened into something uglier. It began with whispers, then progressed to parents pulling their children from Sarah's classroom. "I won't have my Johnny sitting in the same room as a savage," Mrs. Peterson declared one morning, her son's hand gripped tightly in hers. "Nayati remains in the back room during classes," Sarah explained patiently. "He has no contact with the children unless I specifically arrange it. Don't matter. Word is you're treating him like he's white, like he's one of us." The woman's face pinched with disgust. "It ain't natural." By week's end, Sarah's class had dwindled from 28 pupils to 19. Mayor Thornton summoned her to his office, where the town council waited with stern expressions. "This situation has gotten out of hand, Miss Holloway," the mayor began. "When we assigned you to teach the Apache, we didn't intend for him to become a fixture in our community." "His name is Nayati," Sarah corrected, "and he's making remarkable progress." Councilman Peters snorted. "Teaching a wolf to sit doesn't make it a house pet." "He's a human being," Sarah said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "A man who's learning to communicate despite devastating injury." "The point," Mayor Thornton interrupted, "is that parents are removing their children from school. This undermines the very purpose of your position here. And if I confine Nayati to his room, never allow him outside, will that satisfy everyone?" The council members exchanged glances. "It would be a start," the mayor conceded. Sarah stood, gathering her shawl. "I will not treat any person under my care like a prisoner. Nayati has committed no crime except being Apache. If the council wishes to dismiss me for providing proper education to all my students, then do so." She left before they could respond, her heart pounding. The bluff was dangerous. She had nowhere else to go, no savings to speak of, but she couldn't abide their demands. The next morning, Sarah found a note nailed to the schoolhouse door. The crude handwriting spelled out, "Stop wasting time on the savage or face consequences." She removed it quickly, but not before Nayati, watching from the window, had seen it. When she entered, he was unusually quiet. "It's nothing," she assured him, tucking the note into her pocket. "Just ignorance." "I bring you trouble," he said, his English improving daily. "No, Nayati. Prejudice brings trouble. Ignorance brings trouble." She unfolded a newspaper on the table between them. "Today we're reading headlines. The world is much bigger than Copper Springs." That afternoon, as children played in the schoolyard during recess, a group of men approached. James Harker led them, his rancher's hat pulled low over his eyes. "Miss Holloway," he called. "A word." Sarah stepped outside, closing the schoolhouse door behind her. "Mr. Harker, gentlemen, what can I do for you?" "You can stop this foolishness with the Apache," Harker said. "Town's in an uproar. People talking about pulling all their kids from school. As I've explained to the council, Nayati remains separate from the children's classes. Their education is not affected." "It's the principal," another man, Daniels, who owned the livery stable, chimed in. "Apache killed Harker's brother 2 years back. Killed Mason's wife too. Now you're treating this one like he's special." "Nayati is not responsible for those deaths," Sarah said firmly. "He's one man, not an entire people." "Apache is Apache," Harker growled, stepping closer. "If you won't listen to reason, maybe we need to take matters into our own hands." "That's enough, Harker." Sheriff Davis approached from the street, hand resting casually on his holstered pistol. Behind him came Dr. Morgan, medical bag in hand. "This isn't your concern, Doc," Harker said. "When armed men threaten a woman at my town schoolhouse, it becomes my concern," Dr. Morgan replied evenly. "Nobody's threatening," Harker protested, though he took a step back. "Just trying to make her see sense." "I believe Miss Holloway has work to do," the sheriff interjected. "Why don't you boys head over to the saloon? First round's on me." The men hesitated, then slowly dispersed, muttering among themselves. Harker lingered, his gaze hard. "This isn't over," he warned before following the others. "Are you all right?" Dr. Morgan asked, moving to Sarah's side. "Yes, thank you. Both of you." She glanced toward the schoolhouse. But Nayati saw everything from the window. "I'm concerned about how this affects him." Inside, they found Nayati withdrawn, his face set in rigid lines. When Sarah approached, he wheeled himself backward. "You should stop," he said quietly. "Teaching me. Not worth trouble." "That's not your decision to make," Sarah replied. "My people, your people, always fighting. Cannot change." Dr. Morgan pulled up a chair. "Change is slow, Nayati, but it happens. One person at a time." Nayati's gaze moved between them, then settled on Sarah. "They hate me, hurt you because of me. They fear what they don't understand," Sarah corrected. "And they don't get to decide what I do. What we do." She placed her hand on the table between them, palm up, not quite touching him but offering connection. "They don't get to decide what we're capable of." After a long moment, Nayati placed his hand beside hers, not touching but close, a gesture of solidarity. That evening, when Sarah returned to her boarding house, Mrs. Abernathy met her at the door, face pinched with disapproval. "I've had 3 families tell me they'll withdraw their business if I continue boarding you," she said without preamble. "I can't afford that, Miss Holloway. You have 2 weeks to find other accommodations." Sarah nodded wearily. "I understand, Mrs. Abernathy. Thank you for the warning." Alone in her room, Sarah finally allowed her composure to crack. The note, the confrontation, now eviction, the cost of her principles was mounting. Yet when she pictured Nayati's determined face as he formed English words, as he reclaimed his dignity piece by piece, she knew she could not abandon him. Sarah's eviction from Mrs. Abernathy's boarding house created an unexpected opportunity. Samuel Wright offered her the small apartment above his general store, less respectable for a single woman than a proper boarding house, but a sanctuary nonetheless. "My wife would have done the same," the storekeeper said simply when Sarah thanked him. "She always said character matters more than convention." The move brought Sarah closer to the schoolhouse and gave her evening hours free from Mrs. Abernathy's judgmental gaze. She often stayed late with Nayati, their lessons evolving from basic language to rich discussions as his English improved. One evening, as Sarah was preparing to leave, Nayati spoke her name softly. "Yes?" she replied, gathering her books. "I want tell you about before." He gestured to his legs. "Before this." Sarah settled back into her chair, understanding the significance of the moment. "I'd be honored to hear your story, Nayati." He reached beneath his shirt and withdrew a small leather pouch suspended from a cord around his neck. Opening it carefully, he removed several small objects: a smooth stone, a carved wooden bead, a fragment of turquoise, and a tiny bundle of herbs. "Medicine pouch," he explained. "Sacred things. Power. Memory." He touched the stone. "From my father. He was Kael." Seeing her confusion, he searched for the English word. "One who sees with spirits. Healer. Teacher. A medicine man?" Sarah suggested. "Yes, medicine man." Nayati nodded. "He teach me horses. Say I have gift. Can speak to horse spirit." As the night deepened, Nayati's story emerged in pieces. His childhood. In the mountains, his training with horses, his rise to become his band's most respected horse trainer and breeder. His words painted vivid images of a life Sarah could barely imagine. Free, connected to the land, governed by traditions thousands of years old. "I had wife," he said, touching the turquoise fragment. "Kizzy, beautiful like sky. 2 children." His voice faltered. "All gone now. What happened?" Sarah asked gently. Nayati's face hardened. "Soldiers come. Dawn attack. No warning." His hands gripped the arms of his wheelchair. "I fight. Send Kizzy with children to escape. Bullet find me here. He touched his back where the bullet had shattered his spine. I fall. Cannot move. Cannot help them. Sarah waited silently, giving him space to continue or stop as he needed. Later I learn no escape. Soldiers kill many. Take others to reservation. Kizzy, children not found. Not among living. Not among dead they count. I'm so sorry, Nayati. He looked at her directly. Why you cry for Apache family? Sarah hadn't realized tears had formed. Because they were people. Because they were your family. Because no one deserves such loss. Nayati considered this, then carefully returned the objects to his medicine pouch. Soldiers think I die soon. Bring me here for doctor. Then forget me. And the town just kept you? Sheriff say better than killing wounded man. Some want to. Mayor say keep me. Show others they catch Apache. The casual cruelty of it stunned Sarah. Like a trophy. Yes, trophy. Nayati's mouth twisted. Until you come. In the days that followed, Nayati shared more of his culture, Apache beliefs about the natural world, their governance, their values. Sarah absorbed everything, recognizing the privilege of this knowledge. Dr. Morgan became a regular participant in their evening discussions, bringing medical texts to help Nayati understand his condition. The bullet damaged your spinal cord, he explained, showing anatomical drawings. The nerves that carry messages from your brain to your legs were severed. Medical science has no way to repair this damage. In my tribe, Nayati said, man who cannot walk, hunt, fight has no place. Better to die with honor. And now? Sarah asked. What do you believe now? Nayati was quiet for a long moment. Now, I think maybe man is more than legs. More than walking, hunting. Maybe, he struggled for words, maybe spirit can ride even when body cannot. One evening, Nayati spoke of horses again, his face animated with rare passion. My people, greatest horse trainers. Not break spirit, work with spirit. Listen, understand. He made a flowing gesture with his hands. Horse and man, same breath, same thought. You miss it, Sarah observed. Working with horses, like missing air, he admitted, was my purpose, my gift. Later, walking with Dr. Morgan under the star-filled sky, Sarah couldn't shake Nayati's words. He was a horse trainer. Not just any trainer, but someone with special gifts, she said. Now he sits in a room all day, reading books and carving small wooden figures. He's alive, Sarah, learning. Adapting. Many in his situation would have given up. It's not enough, she insisted. There must be a way for him to reconnect with horses, to use his gift again. Dr. Morgan stopped walking, considering her words. What exactly are you proposing? I don't know yet, but Nayati wasn't just injured physically. His purpose was taken from him. If we could somehow restore that, it would be dangerous, Dr. Morgan warned. For him physically and for you socially. The town barely tolerates what you're doing now. Sarah gazed up at the vast desert sky. Some things are worth the risk, William. He smiled at her use of his first name. You've already decided, haven't you? I think perhaps I have. She turned to face him. Will you help us? Us, he repeated thoughtfully. Yes. I rather think I will help us. God knows someone needs to keep you both from breaking your necks in whatever scheme you're hatching. They continued walking, their shoulders occasionally brushing in the darkness, while Sarah's mind filled with possibilities for returning Nayati to the world of horses. A world where his paralyzed legs might matter less than his extraordinary gift. Samuel Wright owned a gentle mare named Penny, used primarily for delivering goods to outlying farms. When Sarah approached him about her plan, he scratched his beard thoughtfully. Not sure how a paralyzed man can work with horses, Miss Holloway. He wouldn't ride conventionally, Sarah explained. Just being near horses again would mean everything to him. Wright considered this. Penny's got a sweet temperament. Suppose there's no harm in bringing her round the schoolhouse. Dr. Morgan, meanwhile, consulted with a cavalry surgeon passing through town. Together, they sketched designs for a modified saddle that might provide the support Nayati would need. It's theoretical, Dr. Morgan cautioned, showing Sarah the drawings. Without feeling or control of his lower body, staying mounted would be extremely challenging. But possible? Sarah pressed. Technically, yes, with sufficient upper body strength and proper supports. He folded the paper. I've spoken with Davis at the blacksmith shop. He's willing to adapt a saddle according to these specifications. When all was prepared, Sarah approached Nayati with barely contained excitement. I have a surprise for you, she announced one morning. Someone is waiting outside. Curiosity flickered across Nayati's face as she wheeled him to the schoolhouse door. In the yard stood Samuel Wright, holding Penny's reins. Nayati went completely still. His breath caught, and something like pain crossed his features. I thought, Sarah began, suddenly uncertain, that you might like to be with a horse again. For a long moment, Nayati said nothing, his eyes fixed on the mare. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. Wright led Penny closer. The mare's ears pricked forward, nostrils flaring slightly as she regarded Nayati. Slowly, Nayati extended his hand, palm up. Penny sniffed, then gently nudged his palm with her muzzle. She greets you, Sarah observed softly. Yes, Nayati whispered. She is polite horse. He spoke to Penny in Apache, his voice taking on a musical quality Sarah had never heard before. The mare stood perfectly still, ears focused on him, as if understanding every word. What are you telling her? Sarah asked. My name, my respect, that I have no sugar or treats. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. That she is beautiful mare with kind eyes. For nearly an hour, Nayati simply communed with Penny, stroking her neck, examining her hooves, speaking to her in low tones. Wright eventually had to leave for his store, but promised to return with Penny another day. Thank you, Nayati said to Sarah afterward, his voice thick, with emotion. Important gift. There's more, she told him, revealing Dr. Morgan's saddle design. If you're willing to try. Nayati studied the drawings, understanding immediately what they represented. To ride again, he murmured. Possible. Dr. Morgan thinks so, with practice and the right equipment. The blacksmith is already working on it. Hope and fear warred in Nayati's expression. If fail, then we try differently, Sarah said firmly. But we try. The modified saddle arrived 2 weeks later, a marvel of leather and metalwork with additional supports for Nayati's back and legs, and special straps to secure him safely. The first attempt was disheartening. Despite the supports, Nayati struggled to balance. His frustration mounted as Dr. Morgan and Samuel Wright tried to position him correctly on Penny's back. Enough, he finally said, his face flushed with exertion and shame. Not working. It's only the first try, Sarah encouraged. Rome wasn't built in a day. What is Rome? Nayati asked, momentarily distracted. A great city, she explained. The point is, difficult things take time. Nayati insisted on returning to his room, where he remained unusually quiet during their evening lesson. Sarah feared he had given up, but the next morning, she found him already awake, performing strengthening exercises for his arms and torso. We try again, he said simply. Their second attempt showed modest improvement. The third was better still. By the fourth session, Nayati could remain mounted for nearly 20 minutes, his upper body adapting to compensate for his immobile lower half. You're doing wonderfully, Sarah praised. Not riding, Nayati corrected. Just sitting on horse. But determination burned in his eyes. Word of their endeavor spread through town, drawing mixed reactions. Some found it foolish or inappropriate. Others were cautiously intrigued. One afternoon, as they worked with Penny in the schoolyard, a crowd gathered to watch. Among them was Tom Reynolds, whose prize stallion, Midnight, had recently injured a stable hand during a violent outburst. "They say you're good with horses, Apache," Reynolds called. "That true, or just schoolmarm nonsense?" Before Sarah could intervene, Nayati responded calmly. "Was good. Before." He gestured to his wheelchair. "Now, learning again." Reynolds snorted. "Shame. Paid good money for a stallion nobody can handle now. Probably have to shoot him." Something changed in Nayati's demeanor. "Bring horse here," he said. "Let me see." "Nayati," Sarah cautioned. "A dangerous stallion isn't the place to start." "Not ride," he clarified. "Just talk. See." Reynolds looked skeptical. "Talk to my horse? What good would that do?" "More good than bullet," Nayati replied evenly. The following day, Reynolds arrived leading Midnight, a magnificent black stallion whose rolling eyes and flattened ears announced his agitation. Several men accompanied Reynolds, ready to intervene if the horse became unmanageable. Nayati sat in his wheelchair at a safe distance, observing the stallion with practiced eyes. "Bring closer," he instructed. "Slow." As Midnight approached, his agitation increased. He tossed his head, nostrils flaring. "Hold," Nayati said when the stallion was about 20 feet away. To everyone's surprise, he began to sing, a low, rhythmic chant in Apache. The stallion's ears flicked forward, his head lowering slightly. Nayati continued singing, making small gestures with his hands that somehow captivated the horse's attention. Gradually, Midnight calmed, his breathing slowed, his posture relaxed. "Man and horse," Nayati explained quietly between verses. "Same breath, same spirit." After nearly 30 minutes, Midnight stood quietly, all signs of his previous aggression gone. Reynolds stared in amazement. "I'll be damned," he muttered. "Never seen anything like it." As they led the stallion away, Nayati turned to Sarah, his eyes alight with purpose for the first time since she had known him. "This," he said with quiet certainty, "this I can still do." News of Nayati's success with Reynolds' stallion traveled quickly through Copper Springs. Sarah heard the whispers as she shopped at the general store. "Apache horse magic," some called it. "Devil's work," muttered others. But no one could deny what Reynolds himself had witnessed. One morning, a breathless Tommy Jenkins burst into the schoolhouse during lessons. "Miss Holloway, there's been an accident at Harker's ranch. His big stallion Thunder. He's gone crazy." Sarah dismissed her class early and sought out Nayati, who was practicing his reading in the back room. "James Harker's prize stallion has injured someone," she explained. "The ranch hand who works with him." Nayati looked up from his book. "Harker, the man who hates Apache." "Yes," Sarah acknowledged. "The same." "He will not want my help." "Perhaps not. But a valuable horse and a man's life might change his mind." They found Samuel Wright at his store, discussing the incident with several townsmen. "Bad business," Wright confirmed. "Stallion's worth a small fortune. Harker paid $2,000 for him. Meant to improve his entire breeding stock. But the animals turned vicious. Nearly killed young Jim this morning." "What will happen to the horse?" Sarah asked. "Harker's giving him one more day. If no one can calm him, he'll be destroyed tomorrow." Sarah glanced at Nayati, who sat silently in his wheelchair. "Mr. Wright, would you be willing to suggest Nayati's help to Mr. Harker?" Wright's eyebrows rose. "Harker? The man would sooner burn his ranch than accept help from an Apache." "Perhaps. But he might make an exception for his $2,000 stallion." Wright scratched his beard thoughtfully. "It's worth a try, I suppose. Harker loves money more than he hates Indians." That afternoon, a reluctant James Harker arrived at the schoolhouse, hat in hand but pride still evident in his rigid posture. He pointedly addressed only Sarah, ignoring Nayati entirely. "Wright says your ward has a way with difficult horses." Nayati was his tribe's most respected horse trainer, Sarah confirmed. "He has a gift." Harker's jaw tightened. "I don't believe in gifts, but my stallion's worth a considerable sum. If there's any chance of salvaging him—" He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "You want Nayati to help," Sarah finished for him. "I want to see what he can do," Harker corrected, "before I put a bullet in a valuable animal." Nayati, who had remained silent, finally spoke. "I will see horse, then decide." Harker's head snapped toward him, surprised by the clear English. "You decide? Listen here." "Yes," Nayati interrupted calmly. "I decide. Not all horses can be helped. Not all men want help." He held Harker's gaze. "I must see if your heart and horse's heart can find peace." Word spread rapidly that the Apache would attempt to tame Harker's stallion. By the time Sarah and Nayati arrived at the ranch the following morning, a sizable crowd had gathered. Dr. Morgan accompanied them, concerned about the potential for trouble, both from the horse and from hostile onlookers. Thunder was confined in a small corral, separated from the other horses. Even from a distance, they could see his agitation, pacing, tossing his head, occasionally kicking at the wooden fence. "Beautiful animal," Nayati observed. "Arabian blood?" Harker nodded stiffly. "Arabian crossed with my best quarter horse line. Should have been perfect." "No such thing as perfect horse," Nayati replied. "Only perfect understanding between horse and man." Sarah positioned Nayati's wheelchair at the corral fence, allowing him an unobstructed view of the stallion. The crowd pressed closer, eager to witness either a miracle or a failure. "Everyone back," Nayati instructed. "Too many people, too much energy. Horse feels it." Reluctantly, the spectators retreated several paces. Harker remained, arms crossed defensively. "You too," Nayati told him. "Your anger speaks too loud. Horse hears it." Harker bristled but withdrew after a warning glance from Sheriff Davis, who had arrived to maintain order. For nearly 20 minutes, Nayati simply observed Thunder, making small sounds occasionally, clicks and soft whistles that caught the stallion's attention. Gradually, the horse's frantic pacing slowed. He began casting curious glances toward Nayati. "Open gate," Nayati finally said. "Let him choose to come." "That's madness," Harker protested. "He'll bolt or charge." "He will choose," Nayati insisted. "This is test, not of horse, of your trust." After a tense standoff, Harker reluctantly instructed his ranch hand to open the gate slightly. Thunder immediately noticed the change, his ears pricking forward. The crowd held its collective breath as the stallion cautiously approached the opening. He paused, nostrils flaring as he caught Nayati's scent. Then, to everyone's astonishment, he slowly walked through the gate. Nayati began speaking in Apache, his voice low and rhythmic. Thunder's ears flicked back and forth, absorbing the unfamiliar sounds. Step by careful step, the stallion approached the wheelchair. "He is not bad horse," Nayati said without looking away from Thunder. "He is confused horse. Previous owner used whip, harsh bit. Horse remembers pain, expects pain." He extended his hand slowly. "He needs to learn trust again." Thunder stretched his neck, nostrils flaring as he sniffed Nayati's outstretched fingers. After a moment's hesitation, the stallion took another step forward, then gently pressed his muzzle into Nayati's palm. A murmur ran through the crowd. Even Harker appeared dumbfounded by the transformation. "I have never—" he began, then fell silent as Nayati continued communing with the horse. For another hour, Nayati worked with thunder, using only his voice and hands. By the end, the previously dangerous stallion stood calmly beside the wheelchair, occasionally lowering his head as if listening to Nayati's quiet words. "He can be great horse again," Nayati finally announced, "but needs patient hand, gentle teaching." He looked directly at Harker. "Can you give this?" Harker shifted uncomfortably under Nayati's steady gaze. "I paid for results, not for some mystical horse whispering." "This is result," Nayati replied evenly. "Horse trusting man again, beginning not end." As they prepared to leave, a well-dressed stranger approached Sarah. "Remarkable demonstration," he said, tipping his hat. "Clayton Miller, ma'am. I breed thoroughbreds near Tucson. Would your Apache friend consider working with some of my more challenging horses?" Before Sarah could respond, she noticed a reporter from the territorial newspaper scribbling notes at the edge of the crowd. Something significant had just begun. The territorial newspaper ran a small article about the mysterious Apache horse whisperer of Copper Springs. Though brief, it sparked interest beyond the town's borders. Within weeks, inquiries began arriving: ranchers with difficult horses, breeders seeking advice, even a cavalry officer curious about native training methods. Sarah helped Nayati establish a system for his growing business. Together, they created a ledger book to track appointments and payments. Dr. Morgan continued improving the wheelchair and saddle designs, allowing Nayati greater mobility and independence. "You should charge more," Sarah advised, reviewing their records one evening. "Your skills are rare and valuable." Nayati shook his head. "Not about money, about horses, about purpose." "Nevertheless," she insisted, "you deserve fair compensation. You're building a future." The concept of future still seemed foreign to Nayati, who had lived day-to-day since his injury. Yet, as his savings grew, he began to consider possibilities beyond mere survival. On a crisp autumn morning, Clayton Miller returned from Tucson with a magnificent but troubled mare, the prized possession of a wealthy banker's wife. "Finest bloodlines in the territory," Miller explained as they examined the nervous chestnut. "But she's developed a habit of throwing riders. No one can stay mounted for more than a minute." Nayati observed the mare with practiced eyes. "She moves like she has pain, not mean spirit, hurt body." He directed Miller to walk the horse, watching her gait carefully. "There," he said, pointing to her right foreleg. "She favors this leg. Small pain becomes big fear." Dr. Morgan examined the leg and discovered a nearly invisible splinter embedded deep in the frog of her hoof, a source of constant irritation invisible to less careful observers. "Remarkable diagnosis," Miller said as they removed the splinter. "Most would have blamed the horse's temperament." "Horse rarely bad without reason," Nayati replied. "Same as people." Word of Nayati's success spread further. Sarah helped him compose letters to distant clients, explaining his methods and availability. Some were skeptical about a paralyzed Apache's abilities, but results quickly overcame prejudice. Even in Copper Springs, attitudes began to shift. Townspeople who had once crossed the street to avoid the savage now nodded in recognition. Children, naturally curious, often gathered to watch him work with horses in the schoolyard. Not everyone embraced the change. Mayor Thornton and several council members remained coldly disapproving. James Harker, despite Thunder's remarkable improvement under Nayati's guidance, refused to publicly acknowledge the Apache's skill. "They'll accept his help but not his humanity," Sarah observed bitterly to Dr. Morgan. "Progress comes in small steps," he reminded her. A year ago, Nayati was kept in a storage room like unwanted furniture. Now he has work, respect, even a modest income. Their relationship had deepened over the months of working. Together, William, as Sarah now called him in private, had become a steadfast ally and increasingly dear friend. His regular visits to check on Nayati often extended into shared meals, and long conversations that left Sarah feeling both comforted and confused by her growing attachment. One evening, after a particularly successful day with a rancher's skittish colt, Nayati surprised Sarah by asking about their relationship. "You and Doctor, why not speak true feelings?" Sarah nearly dropped the book she was shelving. "I'm not sure what you mean. Among my people, more direct. Man, woman feel love, say love." He gave her a knowing look. "White people make simple things complicated." "It's not that simple," Sarah protested, though her cheeks warmed. "There are considerations, professional boundaries." "Life short," Nayati said simply. "My people know this well. Why waste time?" The conversation left Sarah unsettled, more aware than ever of her feelings for William and the unspoken current between them. As winter approached, Nayati's business faced a new challenge: the need for proper facilities. The schoolyard worked in fair weather, but wouldn't suffice during the coming cold months. "You need stable," Nayati told Sarah. "Place for horses, for work. Real place, not borrowed schoolyard." Sarah considered the savings recorded in their ledger. "It's a significant investment. We'd need land, building materials." "I have money now," Nayati reminded her. "My money, my choice." After careful consideration, they approached Samuel Wright, who owned a small parcel of land at the edge of town. "Not using it for anything," Wright said, reviewing their proposal. "Be glad to sell it for a fair price. But you'll face opposition, you know. Some folks won't like an Apache owning property in Copper Springs." "Some folks don't like much of anything," Sarah replied dryly. When they brought the matter before the town council, Mayor Thornton was predictably resistant. "There are legal considerations," he hedged. "The Apache's status is unusual. He's technically still a prisoner of sorts." "A prisoner who contributes to this town's economy," Sarah countered. "Who pays for goods at our stores and brings business from neighboring communities." Councilman Harrison, the banker who had recently sought Nayati's help with his own troublesome gelding, unexpectedly spoke up. "The Apache Nayati has an active business account at my bank. His funds are legitimate. I see no reason to block a standard property transaction." The council remained divided, but with Harrison's support and the reluctant acknowledgement of Nayati's economic contribution, they eventually approved the purchase with restrictions. That December, construction began on a small but functional stable on Nayati's newly acquired land. Sarah watched his face as the framework rose. Pride mingled with disbelief, as if he couldn't quite comprehend owning something permanent. "Your place," she said, squeezing his shoulder. "Your future." "Our work," he corrected. "Not possible alone." As they surveyed the construction site, a letter arrived from the territorial governor's office. The governor's wife had heard of Nayati's gift with horses and wished to send her valuable but problematic Arabian mare for training. "The governor's wife," Sarah breathed, recognizing the significance. "Nayati, this is an extraordinary opportunity." He nodded thoughtfully. "Big responsibility. Important horse, important people. Are you concerned?" Nayati smiled slightly, his confidence evident. "Horse is horse. Does not care about governor. Only cares about truth between horse and man." He patted the arm of his wheelchair. "And truth does not require legs that walk." The governor's mare arrived with great fanfare. A high-spirited Arabian with a reputation for unpredictability in competition. Nayati worked with her daily, his gentle persistence gradually winning the animal's trust. Dr. Morgan often observed these sessions, fascinated by Nayati's techniques. "It's remarkable," William said one evening as he and Sarah watched Nayati conclude his training. "He doesn't just control the horse, he communicates with it, creates a partnership." "He says that's the Apache way," Sarah replied. "Not dominance, but understanding." As they walked back toward town in the gathering dusk, William's hand occasionally brushed against hers, perhaps accidentally, perhaps not. These small contacts had become more frequent lately, each one sending a flutter through Sarah's chest. "The stable is coming along nicely," William observed. "Another month and it should be complete." Nayati can hardly believe it's his. Sometimes I find him just sitting there, watching the construction, as if it might disappear if he looks away. Ownership means something different to him now. Before, he belonged to the land, to his tribe. Now something belongs to him. They reached the path that diverged toward Sarah's apartment above the general store. William hesitated, seeming reluctant to end their walk. "Would you?" he began, then stopped himself. "It's getting late. I should let you rest." "William," Sarah said softly. "Would I what?" In the fading light, she saw color rise in his cheeks. "Would you join me for dinner tomorrow? At my home. I'm a passable cook, surprisingly enough." Sarah smiled, warmth spreading through her. "I'd like that very much." The following evening, Tommy Jenkins bounded into the schoolhouse after classes, a frequent visitor since his first encounter with Nayati months earlier. "Ma sent cookies," he announced, proudly displaying a small cloth-wrapped package. "She said to thank Mr. Nayati for helping with our pony." Nayati accepted the gift with grave courtesy. "Thank your mother. Good cookies need good heart." Tommy settled cross-legged on the floor, watching as Nayati carved another small wooden figure. "What are you making?" "Eagle," Nayati replied, his hands moving with practiced precision. "Sacred bird. Carries prayers to Great Spirit." "My pa says Indians pray to false gods," Tommy said matter-of-factly, without malice. "Perhaps," Nayati replied carefully. "Great Spirit has many names, many faces. Like sky looks different from different mountains, but still same sky." Tommy considered this. "That makes sense, I guess. Can you teach me to carve?" Sarah observed their interaction with quiet joy. Children's natural openness had provided Nayati with his first connections in Copper Springs. Now Tommy and several other students regularly visited, drawn by his stories, carving skills, and gentle manner with their questions. Later, as Sarah prepared for her dinner with William, she shared her observations with Nayati. "You're good with children. They trust you instinctively." "Children see truth," Nayati replied. "Not history, not skin, just person." He studied her more formal dress with knowing eyes. "You go to doctor's house tonight?" Sarah nodded, suddenly self-conscious. "Just dinner." "Good. Time for happiness." Something wistful crossed his face. "When I had wife, Kizzy, every moment precious. Even small things. Cooking, watching stars, sitting silent together." It was rare for Nayati to mention his family. Sarah sat beside him. "Tell me about her. About Kizzy. Strong woman. Laughed much. Wove best baskets in tribe." His eyes grew distant with memory. "Had temper like summer storm. Quick to rise, quick to pass. Beautiful when angry, more beautiful when happy." His hand unconsciously touched the medicine pouch at his neck. "Good mother. Fierce protector. You miss her very much." "Every day. But," he hesitated, searching for words. "Memory now brings more than pain. Brings gratitude. For time we had. Do you think you could ever?" Sarah trailed off, unsure how to ask if he might someday find love again. Nayati understood nonetheless. Different now. Who would want man who cannot walk, cannot provide as husband should? There are many ways to provide, Nayati. Many kinds of strength. He shook his head slightly. Maybe for white woman, white man. Apache ways different. People change. Traditions change. Sarah touched his hand briefly. "You've already proven that." William's home was a modest but comfortable cottage near his surgery. He greeted Sarah at the door, looking unexpectedly nervous. "I realize I've never entertained a lady here before," he admitted, taking her shawl. "I hope everything is suitable." "It's lovely," she assured him, charmed by his concern. The dinner was simple but well prepared: roast chicken, vegetables from William's small garden, fresh bread from the town bakery. They spoke easily about Nayati's progress, the school, town gossip, safe topics that carried them through the meal. As they sat with coffee afterward, William reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "I saw this and thought of you," he said, presenting it to her. "It's not... that is, I don't presume. It's simply a token of my esteem." Inside was a delicate silver hairpin adorned with a small pearl. "William, it's beautiful." Sarah was genuinely touched by the gesture. "Thank you." "May I?" he asked, gesturing to her hair. Heart fluttering, Sarah nodded. William gently secured a loose strand with the pin, his fingers brushing her temple. Their eyes met, and for a suspended moment, possibility hung between them. "Sarah," he began softly, "I've grown to—" A sharp knock at the door interrupted him. William reluctantly answered to find Sheriff Davis looking grave. "Sorry to disturb you, Doc, Miss Holloway. There's a telegram for you, Sarah. From Boston. Your father's taken ill." Quite seriously, from the sound of it. Sarah read the telegram with growing concern. "Pneumonia," she murmured. "They're asking me to come right away." William immediately shifted to practical matters. "The eastbound stage leaves tomorrow morning. I'll help you make arrangements." Later that night, as Sarah hastily packed her belongings, her thoughts were a tumult of worry for her father and regret at leaving just as something precious was beginning to blossom with William. And beneath it all, concern for Nayati, who had come to rely on her partnership in his growing business. "How long will you be gone?" Nayati asked when she explained the situation. "I don't know. Weeks. Perhaps longer if father's condition is as serious as the telegram suggests." "You must go. Family is sacred. But your work, the governor's mare, the new stable, will continue," he assured her. "Doctor will help. Wright will help. I am not helpless man anymore." Sarah realized with a start that it was true. The dependent, silent warrior she had first encountered was gone, replaced by a man of purpose and quiet confidence. "I'll write," she promised. Nayati nodded, then surprised her by taking her hand briefly. "Go with good heart. Copper Springs still here when you return." Left unspoken was what truly concerned them both, whether the delicate progress they had made in the town would withstand her absence, or whether old prejudices would reassert themselves once her protective presence was removed. Sarah's departure cast a long shadow over Copper Springs. For Nayati, her absence created both challenge and opportunity, a test of his independence and the town's tentative acceptance. The governor's mare, Luna, became his primary focus. Each day, he worked with the spirited Arabian, preparing her for an upcoming territorial race that the governor's wife was determined to win. William visited regularly, delivering Sarah's letters and observing Nayati's progress. "She writes that her father's condition is improving, but slowly," William reported one evening, passing a letter to Nayati. "She hopes to return within a month if his recovery continues." Nayati nodded, carefully opening the envelope. Sarah had addressed it to both men, understanding that her written words were precious to Nayati, tangible proof of his growing literacy. "Race is 3 weeks," Nayati noted. "Luna will be ready." The mare had indeed transformed under his guidance. Her nervous energy had been channeled into focused power, her unpredictability replaced by responsive precision. The governor's stable master, initially skeptical of entrusting a valuable horse to an Apache, had become an impressed ally. "I've never seen such improvement," he admitted to William. "The mare runs like she understands what's being asked of her." "That's exactly Nayati's method," William explained. "Understanding rather than domination." News of Luna's progress reached the territorial capital. 2 weeks before the race, the governor himself arrived in Copper Springs to observe her training, an unprecedented honor for the small town. Mayor Thornton and the council scrambled to organize a suitable reception, suddenly eager to claim Nayati's work as a point of civic pride. The same officials who had assigned him to Sarah as punishment now presented him as a local asset. Remarkable rehabilitation program, Mayor Thornton told the governor, conveniently recasting history. Miss Holloway and Dr. Morgan have done admirable work, and of course, the Apache has shown surprising aptitude. The governor, a shrewd politician with experience among various tribes, was not easily misled. I understand it was the Apache trainer Nayati, is it? Who developed the methods himself. He insisted on meeting Nayati privately, away from the fawning town officials. At the nearly completed stable, they spoke for over an hour, the territorial governor and the paralyzed Apache warrior, finding unexpected common ground in their shared appreciation for horsemanship. My wife reports that Luna is a different animal, the governor said. More confident, more focused. Luna always had heart, Nayati replied. Just needed to trust rider, trust self. Before departing, the governor made an unexpected request. I'd like you to attend the race in Tucson, Nayati. See your work come to fruition. The invitation created a stir. Nayati traveling to Tucson, representing Copper Springs at a prestigious territorial event, was unprecedented. Some residents objected strenuously. Others saw opportunity in the recognition. The Apache can't represent our town, Councilman Peters protested at an emergency meeting. It's inappropriate, possibly dangerous. The governor himself extended the invitation, William countered. Refusing would be a grave insult. After heated debate, pragmatism prevailed. The potential benefits of the governor's favor outweighed discomfort with Nayati's prominence. Arrangements were made for William to accompany Nayati to Tucson for the race. The day arrived with perfect weather, clear skies and moderate temperatures ideal for racing. Luna, with the governor's stable master in the saddle, faced 5 other thoroughbreds in the territorial championship. Watching from a special viewing area with the governor and his wife, Nayati remained focused on the mare's every movement. She's calm, he observed as the horses lined up. Ready. The race unfolded like a demonstration of Nayati's methods. Luna broke cleanly from the gate, settled into a measured rhythm, and responded perfectly to her rider's cues. In the final stretch, when the stable master asked for her ultimate effort, she surged forward with magnificent power, crossing the finish line 3 lengths ahead of her nearest competitor. The victory was decisive. The governor's wife was ecstatic, the crowd enthusiastic, and Luna herself seemed to prance with newfound confidence during the winner's ceremony. Afterward, the governor made a point of publicly thanking Nayati, shaking his hand before the assembled dignitaries and spectators. The moment was captured by a photographer from the territorial newspaper, a paralyzed Apache trainer being honored by Arizona's highest official. The following week, the governor's formal letter of commendation arrived, along with a substantial payment for Nayati's services. Mayor Thornton, reading the letter aloud at a town meeting, could hardly disguise his astonishment at its contents. The governor writes, Mr. Nayati's extraordinary skill with horses represents the finest tradition of Apache horsemanship combined with innovative training methods. Copper Springs is fortunate to count such a gifted individual among its citizens. The letter was published in the territorial newspaper alongside the photograph and a detailed account of Luna's victory. Almost overnight, Nayati's reputation expanded beyond Copper Springs to the entire territory. Requests for his services multiplied. Wealthy ranchers, racehorse owners, and cavalry officers sent inquiries. Even James Harker, witnessing the potential prestige and profit, approached William about bringing his entire breeding stock under Nayati's guidance. Remarkable how quickly attitudes change when money and status are involved, William observed dryly. For Nayati, the sudden attention brought both opportunity and wariness. Many people now want Apache help, he told William. Same people who called me savage. People are complicated, William replied. Their prejudices compete with their self-interest. The town council, recognizing Nayadi's growing economic importance, convened a special session. Mayor Thornton proposed officially acknowledging Nayadi's business, a significant shift from their previous stance. It's becoming clear, the mayor stated carefully, that Mr. Nayadi's enterprise brings considerable benefit to our community. Visitors require lodging, meals, supplies. His reputation reflects well on Copper Springs. His status remains problematic, Councilman Harrison noted. Technically, he's still a prisoner of war, not a citizen. A technicality we might address, the mayor suggested, surprising everyone. With the governor's evident approval, perhaps a special dispensation. As the council debated Nayadi's legal status, a U.S. cavalry officer arrived in Copper Springs. Captain James Richardson had been dispatched from Fort Bowie to investigate reports of an Apache warrior living freely in a white settlement. "This is highly irregular," he informed Sheriff Davis. "All Apache should be confined to the San Carlos Reservation. I need to assess this situation immediately." The captain's arrival cast a shadow over Nayadi's growing success. Despite his achievements and the governor's recognition, his fundamental freedom remained precarious, subject to military authority and federal Indian policy. Captain Richardson conducted his investigation with military precision. He interviewed Sheriff Davis about Nayadi's capture and subsequent detention, examined town records, and finally requested a meeting with Nayadi himself. William insisted on being present during this meeting at the newly completed stable. "I'm here as Mr. Nayadi's physician," he explained to the captain. "His medical condition is relevant to any decisions regarding his status." Captain Richardson, a lean man with a clipped mustache and weary eyes, nodded curtly. "Understood, doctor. My concerns are procedural, not medical, but your input is welcome." The captain studied Nayadi with professional detachment. "According to Army records, you were wounded and captured during the Whitetail Creek engagement approximately 18 months ago. Is that correct?" "Yes," Nayadi replied calmly. "I was shot, could not move legs. Soldiers thought I would die. Yet here you are." The captain consulted his notes. "Living independently, operating a business, owning property. All highly irregular for a prisoner of war." "Nayadi's situation is unique," William interjected. "His paralysis makes standard prisoner protocols impractical." "Perhaps, but regulations are clear. All Apache are to be confined to designated reservations." Captain Richardson folded his hands. "I've been authorized to arrange your transfer to San Carlos within 2 weeks." The words fell like stones. San Carlos, the place Nayadi's people called the land where the children cry, was notorious for its harsh conditions and corrupt administration. "My business," Nayadi said quietly, "my stable, my work, would have to be liquidated," the captain confirmed. "Any legitimate assets could theoretically follow you to the reservation, though the practicalities are complicated." "This is absurd," William protested. "Nayadi has established himself as a productive member of this community. The territorial governor himself has recognized his contributions." "The governor doesn't set federal Indian policy, Doctor." Captain Richardson's tone remained professionally neutral. "I'm simply enforcing existing regulations." Later, William called an emergency meeting with Mayor Thornton and the town council. "This is partly your doing," he accused them. "You kept Nayadi in a legal limbo, neither prisoner nor free man, that now threatens everything he's built." The council members exchanged uncomfortable glances. Mayor Thornton cleared his throat. "What exactly does Captain Richardson propose?" "Relocation to San Carlos within 2 weeks. Liquidation of Nayadi's property and business. That would be economically disadvantageous for the town," Councilman Harrison observed carefully. "It would be a profound injustice," William corrected, his patience wearing thin. "And yes, the town would lose a growing business that's bringing in outside revenue." After considerable debate, the council agreed to send a delegation to speak with Captain Richardson. To William's surprise, James Harker requested to join them. "My stallion's worth doubled after the Apache worked with him," Harker explained gruffly. "Just good business to keep him around." While the political maneuvering continued, William found Nayati contemplative, studying a map of Arizona territory. "San Carlos," Nayati said, pointing to the reservation. "Many Apache there. Maybe my people. Maybe family." William hadn't considered this possibility. "You think some of your band might have survived? Your wife, your children?" "Not no. Many taken there after fighting ended." Nayati's face showed conflicting emotions. "Not heard word of them. But maybe." "You're considering going willingly," William realized. "Must think. Here I build new life. Have work, purpose. But alone." Nayati touched his medicine pouch. "At San Carlos, conditions bad. Many sick, hungry. But maybe find people. Maybe even family." The captain proved surprisingly receptive to negotiation. "My orders are to ensure proper disposition of all Apache according to federal policy," he explained to the delegation. "But there are provisions for special cases." He produced a set of legal documents. "These are applications for special citizenship status. Historically, they've been used for Apache scouts who aided the Army, but the language is somewhat flexible." "And this would allow Nayati to remain in Copper Springs?" Mayor Thornton asked. "Potentially, yes, but he would need sponsors, citizens willing to take legal responsibility for his conduct and welfare. And the application would require approval from authorities in Washington." The council debated this new option intensely. Sponsorship meant accountability. If Nayati caused problems, his sponsors would face consequences. Finally, William and Samuel Wright volunteered, along with, to everyone's astonishment, James Harker. "Don't read too much into it," Harker muttered when questioned. "It's a business decision." Meanwhile, a letter arrived from Sarah with devastating news. Her father had taken a turn for the worse, then passed away peacefully with Sarah at his side. She was now managing his affairs and expected to remain in Boston for at least another month. William shared the news gently with Nayati, who received it with quiet sympathy. "Hard journey for her. Losing father. Dealing with death things." "Yes," William agreed. "And difficult timing for us here. She would want to help with your situation." "Sarah already help," Nayati said firmly. "Gave me voice. Gave me chance." He gestured to the stable around them. "Now must use voice, make own choice." That evening, as sunset painted the desert in shades of amber and gold, Nayati made his decision. "We'll stay," he told William. "Build what I started. If application fails, then face San Carlos. But not run from hard path." William nodded, respecting the careful deliberation behind Nayati's choice. "I'll help in any way I can." "Know this," Nayati said, his expression solemn. "If word comes, if learn family alive at San Carlos, we'll go to them. Nothing here more important than that." "Of course," William agreed. "Family comes first." "One more thing," Nayati added. "When Sarah returns, tell her feelings. Life too short for waiting." William blinked, surprised by the directness. "That's rather personal advice." Nayati smiled slightly. Apache more practical about important things. His expression grew serious again. "Lost my chance with Kizzy. No goodbye, no last words. Don't make same mistake." As William rode back to town, he reflected on how roles had reversed. The man who had once been a silent, apparently helpless prisoner was now dispensing wisdom and making difficult choices with clarity and courage. Captain Richardson gave them 1 month to complete the special citizenship application. The documents, complex legal forms requiring detailed justification, would need to be perfect to succeed. "It's a long shot," the captain admitted, But given the unique circumstances and the territorial governor's interest, it may be possible. For Nayati, the uncertainty created a strange freedom. With his future in limbo, each day became more precious, each accomplishment more meaningful. Rather than withdrawing, he threw himself into his work with renewed purpose, as if to prove through action what no legal document could fully capture. His rightful place in the world he had helped create. Sarah's departure for Boston created a void in Copper Springs. The substitute teacher hired by the council lacked her passion and progressive views, much to the council's relief. Yet in her absence, the seeds she had planted continued to grow in unexpected ways. William threw himself into preparing Nayati's citizenship application, researching similar cases and drafting compelling arguments. Samuel Wright offered his store as a collection point for testimonials from those who had benefited from Nayati's horse training. Anyone with a good word to say should put it in writing, Wright announced to his customers. Captain Richardson needs to see Nayati's value to this community. The response surprised everyone. Reynolds, whose stallion had been Nayati's first public success, provided a detailed account of the horse's transformation. Several ranchers testified to increased value in their stock after Nayati's training. Even Mrs. Peterson, who had withdrawn her son from Sarah's class over Nayati's presence, reluctantly acknowledged that the Apache had a way with animals that seems almost Christian. Most significant was a letter from the governor himself, praising Nayati's contributions and formally requesting that he be permitted to remain in the territory as a cultural and economic asset. Captain Richardson reviewed these materials with professional thoroughness. Impressive advocacy, he admitted to William, but the final decision rests with Washington. As they awaited word from federal authorities, Nayati continued building his reputation. He took on an apprentice, young Tommy Jenkins, who had never lost his fascination with the Apache trainer. With his parents' reluctant permission, Tommy spent afternoons at the stable, learning basic horsemanship and absorbing Nayati's philosophy. "Horse not machine," Nayati would explain, guiding the boy's hand as they groomed a nervous mare. "Horse has spirit, feelings, memory. Must respect, not just command." Tommy proved an apt pupil, his natural affinity for animals enhanced by Nayati's patient instruction. More importantly, his presence normalized interaction with Nayati for other children and, by extension, their parents. The citizenship application remained pending as tension mounted in Copper Springs. Some residents, seeing Nayati's business flourish, began to resent his success. Others, recognizing his economic contribution, became unexpected allies. Towns divided. Sheriff Davis reported to William during a chess game at the doctor's cottage. "About half think the Apache should stay, half want him gone. Lines don't fall where you'd expect, either." The sheriff moved his bishop. "Check. Harker's been speaking up for him down at the saloon. Never thought I'd see the day." "Self-interest makes strange bedfellows," William replied, studying the board. "Harker's breeding operation has improved significantly under Nayati's guidance." 3 weeks into the waiting period, Mayor Thornton called a town meeting to address the Apache situation. The church was packed, with citizens spilling onto the steps outside. "This matter affects our entire community," the mayor began. "Captain Richardson awaits instructions from Washington regarding Nayati's status. In the meantime, the council believes we should clarify our town's position." What followed was the most heated public discussion in Copper Springs history. Old grievances against the Apache surfaced alongside pragmatic arguments for Nayati's economic value. Biblical quotes supporting both charity and separation were invoked with equal fervor. "He's still an Indian," one resident shouted. "Can't change his nature. He's brought more business to this town in 6 months than we've seen in 3 years, countered another. William observed the debate with growing concern. Nayati had declined to attend, feeling his presence might inflame tensions, but the physician worried about decisions being made without his input. Then James Harker rose to speak. The crowd quieted, knowing his history of Apache hatred following his brother's death in a raid. "I've no love for Indians," Harker began bluntly. "Most of you know why. But this isn't about all Indians. It's about one man. A man who, despite every reason to hate us, has contributed more to this community than most who were born here." He cleared his throat uncomfortably. "My stallion, Thunder, was worth nothing before Nayati worked with him. Now he's sired 3 colts that'll likely be champions. That's money in my pocket, and goods purchased from Wright's store, and taxes paid to this town." Harker's hands gripped the back of the pew before him. "More than that, though, I've watched him work. There's no deception in him, no malice, just a gift, and the willingness to share it despite how he's been treated." The rancher's voice roughened. "I was wrong about him, maybe about other things too, and I won't stand by while we make another mistake out of blind prejudice." A murmur ran through the crowd. Harker's transformation from virulent Apache hater to Nayati's defender carried enormous weight. As the meeting continued, Samuel Wright proposed a formal petition supporting Nayati's right to remain in Copper Springs. "Let's show Washington where this town stands," he urged. To everyone's surprise, Mayor Thornton was the first to sign. The next morning, Nayati received an unexpected visitor at his stable. Captain Richardson arrived not with orders, but with a request. "The Army has several horses at Fort Bowie that have become unmanageable," he explained. "Valuable animals, but dangerous. I've been authorized to seek your professional assistance." Nayati regarded him steadily. "You want Apache help for Army horses?" "I want expert help," Richardson corrected. "Your tribal affiliation is irrelevant to the horse's needs." This pragmatic approach appealed to Nayati. "Will consult, but cannot travel to Fort." "Understood. The horses will come to you." The captain hesitated. "I should inform you that I've received preliminary feedback from Washington. Your case has generated significant discussion." "Good discussion or bad discussion?" "Both. Your situation is unprecedented. Some officials cite you as an example of successful integration, what they call the civilizing process. Others consider any Apache living freely to be a dangerous precedent." "And what does Captain think?" Nayati asked directly. Richardson considered the question carefully. "I think rigid policies rarely accommodate complex realities. And I think horses don't care about a man's tribal affiliation." After the captain departed, William arrived with news from Sarah. She had finalized her father's affairs and would return on the next available stage. "She'll be here within the week," William reported, unable to hide his anticipation. Nayati nodded approvingly. "Good timing. Much has changed while she was gone." "Indeed," William agreed, "though I'm not sure she'll recognize the town she left behind. Or its people," he thought, reflecting on the extraordinary transformation that had occurred in her absence. Not just in Nayati, who had fully embraced his new identity as a respected horse trainer, but in the community that had begun to see him as their own. The stagecoach arrived amid a swirl of dust and the shouts of the driver. Sarah descended wearily, her black morning dress a stark contrast to the Arizona sunshine. 2 months in Boston had changed her. Grief had carved subtle lines around her eyes, and responsibility had straightened her shoulders. William waited at the stage stop, his heart quickening at the sight of her. Their letters had maintained their connection, but seeing her in person affected him more deeply than he had anticipated. "Welcome home," he said simply, taking her carpet bag. Sarah's smile brightened her tired face. "It feels strange to call Copper Springs home, yet somehow it is." As they walked toward Wright's store where her apartment waited, William updated her on Nayati's situation, the citizenship application, the community's divided response, and the petition that now bore over 60 signatures. "I can hardly believe it," Sarah marveled. "James Harker defending Nayati? Mayor Thornton signing a petition? It sounds like a different town entirely." "In some ways it is," William agreed. "Nayati's success has forced people to reconsider their assumptions. Not everyone, of course, but enough to matter. And Nayati himself? How has he managed without? She hesitated. Without you, William finished gently. Remarkably well, though he'll be overjoyed to see you. He's truly come into his own. Runs his business, makes decisions, even has young Tommy Jenkins as an apprentice of sorts. Sarah absorbed this with mixed emotions. Pride in Nayati's independence, yet a touch of melancholy at being less needed than before. And you, William? How have you been? His eyes met hers. Missing you. Every day. The simple honesty of his response touched her deeply. I've missed you too. More than I can say. They reached her apartment, where Samuel Wright had prepared a welcome. Fresh flowers on the table, a basket of food, a small sign reading, "Welcome home, Miss Holloway." The community's appreciation for their teacher was evident in these thoughtful gestures. After settling in, Sarah's first priority was visiting Nayati. William drove her to the stable in his buggy, watching her face as she took in the changes. The solid new building, the corral where several horses grazed, the small cabin adjacent to the stable where Nayati now lived. It's remarkable, she breathed. All this in just 2 months. Nayati was working with a cavalry horse when they arrived, demonstrating techniques to Captain Richardson. Upon seeing Sarah, he wheeled himself toward her, genuine joy breaking through his usually reserved expression. "Teacher returns," he said warmly. "Good to see your face." Sarah knelt to embrace him, propriety forgotten in the moment of reunion. "I'm so proud of what you've accomplished, Nayati." The captain was introduced, and Sarah quickly assessed his importance to Nayati's situation. "I understand you've been instrumental in the citizenship process, Captain. We're grateful for your fairness." "Just following procedures, ma'am," Richardson replied, though his expression suggested greater personal investment than his words implied. "Mr. Nayati's case is educational for all involved." That evening, a small welcome gathering formed at William's cottage. Sarah and Nayati, Samuel Wright, Sheriff Davis, and a few other allies. Over a simple meal, they strategized about the pending citizenship decision. "Washington moves slowly," the captain warned. "We may not hear for weeks yet." "And if the decision is negative?" Sarah asked. A somber silence fell over the group. Finally, Sheriff Davis spoke. "I reckon I might suddenly get real forgetful about where I put those transfer papers. Might take me weeks to remember." "That would be highly irregular, Sheriff," Captain Richardson said carefully. "Though I understand paperwork does occasionally get misplaced in remote postings." Their cautious optimism was interrupted the next morning when a rider arrived from Tucson with an official dispatch for Captain Richardson. The captain read it privately, then requested a meeting with Nayati, Sarah, and William at the stable. "I've received instructions regarding your status," he informed Nayati, his expression unreadable. "The Department of Interior and the War Department have reached a decision." Sarah gripped the back of a chair, preparing for the worst. "Given the unusual circumstances, your documented economic contribution to the territory, and the special advocacy of the governor," Richardson continued formally, "you have been granted provisional citizenship status, renewable annually upon review of your conduct and circumstances." The captain handed Nayati an official document bearing government seals. "This grants you legal right to remain in Copper Springs, own property, and conduct business. You are no longer considered a prisoner of war or subject to reservation confinement." Nayati accepted the document with steady hands. Studying the official text, he could now read thanks to Sarah's teaching. "Free man," he said quietly. "Legally. With conditions," Richardson cautioned. "You must remain in good standing with local authorities. Any criminal activity would result in immediate revocation." "Understand," Nayati nodded. "Follow white man's law, keep white man's paper." After the captain departed, the full impact of the decision washed over them. For the first time since his capture, Nayati's future was his to determine. The uncertainty that had hung over everything he built had finally lifted. "What will you do now?" Sarah asked. "Now that you can truly choose?" Nayati looked around at the stable he had created. "Continue work. Expand, perhaps. Many horses need help. Many people want Apache training methods." But there was something else in his expression, a distant look that Sarah recognized from their earliest days together. "You're thinking of your family," she said gently. "Of searching for them." Nayati nodded. "Captain says possible to visit San Carlos now. With papers, with permission. Could ask about my people, about Kizzy and children." "Would you stay there if you found them?" William asked. "Not no," Nayati admitted. "Reservation conditions bad. But family is." He touched his medicine pouch. "Family is center of life." "Whatever you decide," Sarah assured him, "this place, what you've built here, will remain yours." Later, walking along the creek that bordered Nayati's property, Sarah and William shared their thoughts about the future. The setting sun gilded the landscape, creating a moment of rare beauty and possibility. "Everything's changed," Sarah observed. "The town, Nayati, even us." "Especially us," William agreed, taking her hand. "Sarah, when you left for Boston, there were words I wanted to say. Words I've held back far too long." He turned to face her, still holding her hand. "I love you. I think I've loved you since that first town meeting when you stood up for what was right. Consequences be damned." Sarah's eyes shimmered with emotion. "I love you too, William. I realized it most clearly when we were apart." Their first real kiss, unhurried and full of promise, was witnessed only by the setting sun and a lone eagle circling overhead, a sight Nayati would have considered a powerful blessing point 5 years later. The Copper Springs Horse Academy stood on what had once been a modest stable at the edge of town. Now it encompassed 10 acres, with a main training ring, stables for 30 horses, and a schoolhouse where both horsemanship and academic subjects were taught. A framed photograph hung prominently in the entrance hall, Nayati in his wheelchair, surrounded by Sarah, Dr. William Morgan, and a dozen students of various ages and backgrounds, including 3 Apache youths from the San Carlos Reservation. The date inscribed at the bottom read, 1890, commemorating the Academy's official founding. Nayati, now in his early 40s, had filled out from the emaciated warrior Sarah had first encountered. His hair, worn in the traditional Apache style, was streaked with dignified silver at the temples. Though still confined to his wheelchair, his upper body strength had become legendary. He could hoist himself onto horseback without assistance using a specialized mounting block of his own design. The journey to this moment had not been without challenges. Nayati's first visit to San Carlos had brought both closure and renewed purpose. No trace of Kizzy or his children had been found, but he discovered distant cousins who confirmed what he had long suspected. His immediate family had not survived the cavalry attack. "Mourned them before," he had told Sarah upon his return. "Now can honor their memory by living well." That resolve had manifested in the academy, which offered training not only to wealthy ranchers and horse breeders, but also to reservation youth and orphan children from across the territory. Nayati's philosophy of understanding before commanding had developed into a comprehensive training approach now sought by clients from as far away as California and Texas. Sarah and William had married 3 years earlier. Their 2-year-old son, named James after Sarah's father, toddled around the academy grounds as if he owned them, fearlessly approaching even the most spirited horses under Nayati's watchful eye. "Horse knows good spirit," Nayati would explain to anxious parents. "Child with open heart safer than adult with fear." The Morgan home, adjacent to William's expanded medical practice, had become a gathering place for the town's progressive elements. Sarah had returned to teaching at the Copper Springs School, now expanded to accommodate the town's growing population. Her methods, once considered radical, had become the standard, inclusive, practical education that prepared children for a rapidly changing world. Mayor Thornton had retired, replaced by Samuel Wright, who had campaigned on a platform of progress with prudence. Under his administration, Copper Springs had established formal, respectful relations with the nearby Apache bands, creating trade opportunities that benefited both communities. On this particular spring day, the Academy hosted a special event, the graduation ceremony for its first full class of students. Families gathered on benches in the main corral, where Nayati addressed the assembled crowd from a small wooden platform. "Horse teaches truth," he began, his English now fluent though still carrying the rhythms of his native language. "Cannot lie to horse, cannot pretend to be what you are not. Horse sees through false words, false feelings." He gestured to his students, 5 young men and 3 young women who had completed the rigorous 2-year program. These students learned more than riding, more than training, learned to speak truth with their bodies, their spirits, learned that strength comes in many forms. His gaze found Sarah and William in the audience, little James perched on his father's shoulders. "5 years ago I was man without future, without voice, without place in world." He touched the eagle feather woven into his hair. "One teacher believed when no one else would. One doctor healed more than body. One town, eventually, opened mind to new possibility. Today, these students go into world carrying those same lessons. Some will train horses. Some will teach others. All will remember that what seems broken may simply be waiting for right hands, right heart to reveal its strength." As the ceremony concluded, the students presented Nayati with a gift, a hand-carved eagle fashioned from cedar wood, its wings outstretched in flight. The craftsmanship was exquisite, clearly the work of many hands working in harmony. "To remind you, Thomas Jenkins, once little Tommy, now a tall young man and the Academy's first graduate, explained, that you taught us to soar above limitations." Later, as the sun set over the desert, Sarah, William, and Nayati shared a quiet moment on the porch of the Academy office. "Did you ever imagine this?" Sarah asked, gesturing toward the thriving complex around them. "That first day in the jailhouse storeroom?" "Never," Nayati admitted. "Saw only darkness then." "And now?" William prompted. Nayati considered the question, watching the last golden light play across the mountains. "Now see path. Not just my path. Many paths connecting. Your path, my path, students' paths. Making new pattern like Apache weaving." He turned his wheelchair to face them fully. "In my tribe, storytellers keep wisdom, passed to next generation. Your story, my story, now part of bigger story, will continue after us." Sarah placed her hand on his shoulder, the gesture bridging cultures and experiences. "A story of seeing possibility where others saw only limitation. A story," William added, "that changed all of us, and this town, forever." Nayati nodded, satisfaction evident in his calm expression. "Good story," he agreed. "Not finished yet." As if to emphasize his point, a rider appeared on the horizon, approaching the Academy. Another client, another horse, another opportunity to share the wisdom that had emerged from suffering and perseverance. Another chapter in a story that would continue long after they were gone, passed down through generations of students who learned that the greatest journeys often begin when the expected path is suddenly, irrevocably closed.